giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast. And here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Welcome back to another episode, and I am so stoked that you are here. This week, I got the pleasure of interviewing the fabulous Jennifer McCallum. This episode was such a small chip of an iceberg, off the iceberg, compared to what it could have been, but I didn't think you wanted to sit here for 12 hours. But we talked all about what it means to unlock your niche superpower. So Jennifer is an author and she is a coach for parent coaches. So she does business coaching for coaches that help parents build relationships and other such within families and help families to be able to grow. But she wrote this fabulous book called Unlock Your Niche Superpower. And when I got an opportunity to read it, I was blown away. And we're going to touch just a bit on it while we go through this. I can't recommend enough that you go out and grab this book. And I know that it is for parent coaches, but really and truly, if you can step out of it being specifically for that for just one moment and look at the questions that she asks in it, the ways she gets you to understand choosing your niche from a different perspective, it will really and truly help you not only to understand your own niche, but I believe help you to set up and understand your own brand. Because a lot of the questions she asks in here, I'm looking on page 79, and the question at the top of the page says, your beliefs about the world. The way that we view things, the way that our belief system plays into how we do business, who we want to do business with, is so absolutely critical and such an important element, yet it is so often overlooked. So I am going to encourage you to go out, grab this book. It is called Unlock Your Niche Superpower by Jennifer McCallum. And without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome her in. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Glenda. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited for this conversation. I was kind of telling you off air that I'd sold travel for years. I owned my own agency, and my husband technically, I owned it. He was there. And I had taken him to a number of the international conferences, but I had taken him to a Canadian one. It was the first time. And there was this fabulous speaker on stage. She owned an agency as well within our network. And then I guess my husband had met her. He comes over. He's like, come here. I'm like, I'm busy. He's like, no, you have to come talk to this lady. And lo and behold, it was your sister. Mm-hmm. And so it was the lovely Marion. And then when Marion put up that you've written this amazing book on niche, I just knew I had to listen. And yes, we are Canadian niche. So for my Americans, that translates to niche. But it is Unlock Your Niche Superpower. And I've had a chance to read it. I haven't quite got through it all because it was so good. And so I'm so excited to have you on the podcast so that we can talk about this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how this book came to be?
Okay, absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me, Glenda, on this chat, because when I get connected through Marion, I know it is a super awesome human that I'm going to be connected with. Marion is my mindset coach, my sister, one of my best friends, and biggest supporter, and has really helped me in everything I've done, but especially in this last few years as I've created a new business, and I'll get to that through my story, but I just want to say you must be awesome, because Marion only connects with awesome people. So yeah, I'm really, really excited that I got a chance to meet you. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I've been in business for 23 years now. And when I first started out, I was a new mom and a new mom who knew nothing about parenting. I can remember we got home from the hospital with our new baby, and still the baby was in the car seat on the table, and we looked at each other and said, like, what the heck do we do now? Like, we had no clue. And I was like 30 at the time. Okay, now that's telling you my age. But uh 30 at the time, thought I'm well educated. I've seen my sisters have kids. How hard can this be? And it was really, really hard. And so everything kind of seemed to be a struggle at that point. And I think I was also going through some postpartum anxiety and slight depression, but who knew at the time, because no one would talk about it. It wasn't a normal thing to talk about. Usually what was talked about was, come on, suck it up, get out there and do the thing. So that's how our parenting journey began. It began with just having not a lot of knowledge about parenting and having all these doubts and feeling insecure, and also that, the postpartum anxiety to go along with it. And it wasn't long before I realized, like, how difficult it was for me, but talking to moms in the park and seeing how difficult it was for them too. And then just getting people to begin talking about like all of the struggles that come up. And I realized that it was more than me that had this struggle. So I started putting together some resources to help other people, just like, what to do when you can't breastfeed, what to do when you lack of sleep, and trying to, even have the motivation to get out of the house and do things, and, you know, first foods and diapers and daycare. And, the question just kept going and going. So I put together a list of resources, and I decided, I don't know how I had the bravery to do this, but I went to the hospitals and I said, listen, I had a really tough time when I had my first. Now I'm about to have my second. If I put together a list of a list of resources in a pamphlet, would you hand it out to all new moms coming in and having a baby? And I don't know how, but they said yes. They said, yeah, we'll do it. And this was way before Google, right? Way before we could go to our phones to look for information. So the hospitals accepted my proposal that I would create this pamphlet to give to them. And what ended up happening was it ended up to be a 100-page book.
Oh my.
So I already made this promise to the hospitals, and I had to then figure out, how am I going to pay for this? Because I said, I'm just going to give it to you to help other parents. And so I started selling advertising and sponsorship for it. And I did that for quite a few years. And then our kids entered the school system, and all these like questions came up again. I had no idea. I have no idea how to raise a school-age child. So I created a school-age book. So then again, those went all through all the schools, and I had to figure out how to pay for it. So I sold advertising and sponsorship for it. And eventually, through the last few years, it was kind of taken over from the school boards, and the one for new parents was kind of taken over from public health and hospitals. So it ended up to be a lot of their content, and not necessarily, here's all the choices. It was more focused choices on what the message that they wanted to deliver.
So a lot
I
more
did
of
that.
here's what you need to do, as opposed to this is your options available to you.
Yes.
This is what the books say you are allowed to do, versus as a mom, this is what your options are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was still a great resource because it gave them the phone numbers to call, but it wasn't quite aligning with what I intended this resource to be from the beginning. I ended up printing those books for about 17 years, and then a lot of things happened in our family. So right now, I've got 4 adult kids, 25, 22, and 18-year-old twins. And at the time when I was, thinking about, maybe I don't want to print these books anymore, we had a lot of loss in our lives. So we lost my dad, and my mom passed away suddenly. And the boys that are 18 now, we were in the process of adopting. And through that, there was a lot of losses happening in our lives, a lot of things going on, and just everything led to, ending that business the way that it was. And so I worked at finding my next step after that, after I got my footing and got some support with helping me parent these now teenage kids. And what I did, yeah, you're laughing. So like they're amazing kids. And they were going through all like very heavy things, but also a lot of normal teenage things, but I just wasn't ready. So here I was at another stage of parenting that I knew nothing about. So thankfully, I was smart enough to then realize I needed to reach out for help before it got too bad. And I reached out to a therapist. I reached out to a parent coach. And if you have never heard of a parent coach, because I know your audience are in the travel industry, maybe they haven't heard of a parent coach, but a parent coach is kind of like a life coach for parents, helping them through whatever they're going through. And I reached out to a parent coach, and that parent coach transformed my family, transformed the way that I parented my teen kids to the point where there was so many things going on. And now I've got a beautiful adult relationship with all four of my kids.
I love that. We all need somebody like that.
Yeah, we do. So parent coaches, they're really it. And the therapists also help me through a lot of the things. Therapy is kind of looking to the past and coaching is looking to the future. What's going on now? How do we want the future to look? So as I was trying to think about what to do next, I had no idea what that would be, but I knew I needed to bring parent coaches together because of the effects they had on my family and the transformation I could see happening daily when I was listening to them. So I then decided, and this was with the help of my sister, Marion Rose, mindset coach, I decided that instead of starting a business, like I did before, which was great, there's nothing wrong with the way I started that business. I wanted to have more intention with the way this business was going. I wanted to lead with authenticity. I wanted it to fill my soul. I wanted to jump out of bed in the morning and be so excited to work in my business and on my business that, even on the worst days, I didn't want to give up. So that's when I thought about what do I want that business to look like? Who do I want to surround myself with? How do I want this to look? And I decided I wanted to bring parent coaches together to support each other, to collaborate, not compete, which is what my old business was starting to feel a little bit like.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have a place where people felt connected. So just like you are supporting those in the travel industry, I mean, people get each other when they're together. When you have a community of people in the travel industry, it was the same for me with, parent coaches. They were connected because they understood each other. They understood the struggles. They understood the pain points. And, they also were working at home, so feeling really isolated. So I knew when I shifted to what I was going to do next, it had to be something that filled me with joy and filled them with joy and made them feel like a part of a family. I talk about it in my book a little bit about leading with core values and core beliefs. And I really tied that into that when I started this new business.
That was one of the sections that I was reading. And I kind of mentioned this before we went live here. When I got to that section, it's chapter 8. So first off, it's a ways into the book before we get to that point. And it's chapter 8, the mind core beliefs. And I'm like, but it's about choosing the niche. And then I read further in and I'm like, oh, I get it. Because you go through those 4 main beliefs that are there and how important those are to establishing that niche as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. It's, sometimes when we're building a business, we don't think about these things that are so vital. We don't think about, how does it fit with our lives? Because I truly believe that if you're not aligned with what you are teaching or coaching or selling or whatever you're doing, whatever business you're doing, if you're not fully aligned with it, there's going to be this resistance that it may not show up in your words, but it's going to show up in your energy. So another thing that I really have the coaches that I work with think about is, what is that energy that you're putting out there? And then just evaluating, like, This is my year of question everything. So like, okay, my energy isn't feeling really great. Well, that's because it's not aligned with what I truly believe, or it's not aligned with how I want to show up in the world, right? So really starting with what is the energy, what's going on. Sometimes, and I'm going to speak a little bit to the fears that we all have, that you think, okay, I've got this fear, like, I can't get too big for my britches. It's probably something we heard when we were younger, right? Or like, if I try and niche to a certain area, then I'm going to be giving up all this business. And it's
I,
impossible to
I
build a
hear that
business if I'm
all
giving.
the time
Do you
from
really?
travel
Yeah.
advisors. Well, if I say I only do this, but I'd have to give up everything. Like you don't understand
Yeah.
everything I would have to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really common, and it's common in any industry as well. It's the first thing I hear, oh, you want me to niche? Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not giving up business. And we're not saying give up business, you know, we're saying, yeah, take the business, but the more niche you get, and I know I'm getting off topic, but we're going to come back to the other, because I keep going. If you get me talking about niching, I'm going to keep going down that road, but I do want to swing back to our energy and everything
The
else. But
chasing squirrels just becomes addictive when you're on
I
air with me.
know. I know. Okay. Okay. So I am going to talk about niching for a minute, but we're going to go back to energy. Don't let me forget. So you can embrace a niche. And for those listening in the travel industry and you've got this fear around, I don't want a niche, I don't want to give up business, guaranteed you are going to find more ease in your business and in your life if you embrace a niche, because every time you go to speak, every time you go to create social media, every time you go to talk to a client, your niche is going to come out and they're going to know exactly what you do and how you can help them. And if it's not for them, they're going to know exactly who to refer. So let's say luxury cruise lines is the niche, and that's what you're always talking about. Guaranteed they're going to know how to refer you to someone else if that's what you're always talking to. Doesn't mean at the beginning, especially, that you have to give up business of people coming in other areas. But yeah, so off topic, not really. We're going to go back to the energy because, talking about your core values and your core beliefs and aligning that is really what I did when I shifted my business to what I'm doing now, which is a business coach for parent coaches only. It is my area of expertise. It's also an area that I believe fully I can support my clients through. It is an area that brings in my experience and gives them the tools they need to keep growing their business because I know how valuable their service is. But when they are starting with not believing in themselves, not aligning themselves with their core values and core beliefs, setting goals for the wrong reasons that don't align with them, it's the energy that comes out in everything they do that repels people. So it's almost like if you want to repel someone and have them not book with you, lead with authenticity.
When you lead with authenticity, people will feel it
Yeah.
because it doesn't, and the words will come easier because of the fact that you are coming, they might not come out perfectly, but the sentiment and the like we're going back to that energy, it's going to come out. That was something we talked about before, is that if you have resentment towards people who can spend a lot of money, but yet you want to go into luxury travel so that you can make lots of money, the energy is going to come out, one, either as commission breath, but two, if you have resentment towards people who spend lots of money, they're not going to want to spend it with you. And I'm just here to tell you that just means your resentment's going to go that much higher, because then we start to hear the conversations of they've got that kind of money and they won't even because then it becomes about price. And when you're selling travel, it's never about price. It's about experience. It's about value, but experience is part of an energy exchange, because in order for them to have a positive experience, it has to be filled with positive energy right from the start of the process.
And it does start with your belief in it. So I love that you mentioned that too, because if you don't believe, so here's what I find a lot of my clients that I work with, they start out not believing people will pay them for something that is now you're selling something very tangible. Parent coaching is something intangible. So it's a little bit different.
But I'm going to pop right in there that travel advisors, if they listen to me, I'm sure they already do. And if they don't, they know it's coming, that they charge fees. And for so many, that's an intangible because they're selling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And having sat on that side of the desk where I've charged fees, there's been a time or two, especially when I'm doing something really big and I'm like, no, we are doing a big planning fee up front and it's going to cost you this. There is a moment where it's like, oh my goodness. But I will also say, I also understand your parent coaches because I myself am a coach. And I get that idea of I'm selling what's in my brain. So I see where the two very much overlap because a travel advisor charging fees, sometimes we'll say, well, it's because we built the itinerary, because we built this. The reality is your fee is for your expertise. No matter how big or how small your expertise is, it's your ability to dive in for your clients in the event something goes sideways, in the event something needs to happen. It is going to be where you kick into high gear and you are going to take care of those clients. And again, a lot of it comes back to selling what's in their brain, selling what's within their ability to resource for their clients. So it's not, it was so much easier just to sell an airplane ticket, so much easier to sell hotel reservations than it was to sell me as a person charging fees. I will say I was extraordinarily lucky that when I started selling travel nearly 20 years ago, the agency I worked for nearly 20 years ago was already charging fees across the board. So I really didn't know any different. And I loved the fact that I was given that opportunity to learn the industry right from the ground up that way. And I will say that I still had moments here and there because we all have those moments of doubt. Going back to what you said earlier about fear, those moments of fear, those moments of imposter, those little suckers are going to creep right back in there at any time. And it happens. So, yeah. So we do sell airplane tickets and cruises and all of the things. But when it comes to the fees, I think that's so interlined, similar to what your coaches feel in the process.
So do you find, Glenda, that a lot of your clients then have that fear of charging? Like maybe people won't book with me if they have to
Absolutely.
pay this fee? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a tool then to share with you and your audience. So there's a couple steps to this. Number one is, and I think it is one of the biggest and most important things you can do, is just figure out why you're doing what you're doing. So I told you the story of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, parent coaches transform my family and the relationship I have with my now adult kids. And I wanted to do everything I could possibly do to support them to grow their business. They're brilliant coaches, but the business side was a struggle for them. So that's what I helped them with, that business side of things. So starting out with your why, like, why are you doing this? In the book, I've got a strategy there to help you figure out what your why is. And there's lots of, like, you can even Google, you can, hire someone to go through this with you. Simon Sinek does, a great job of it if you've ever listened to any of his videos and talks. But figuring out like what your strong why is. Why are you doing what you're doing? And then not just like knowing what it is, but feeling it. So when you're figuring out your why, most of us, we want freedom or we want, to pay the bills, and that's great. But your true, deep why brings up an emotion for you. So when I'm telling you about my why, I've got goosebumps and I'm tearing up. I'm thinking like where my family was and where I am with my kids right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got goosebumps. It's bringing up an emotion. So do the work to figure out what that why is for you. When it brings up an emotion, that's a strong enough why for you to keep doing what you're doing. So then there's a second part to that. Okay, I know why I'm doing what I want to do. I'm aligning that with my core values, my core beliefs. I'm working on all my fears, but now I still need some proof Because here I am, I'm about to charge someone and explain to them why they need to pay this fee for me to give them this consultation. And sometimes we need to train our brain on believing in the reason why we are doing it 100% before we are. Hopefully that makes sense. So at the beginning of what we do, and I think it's the beginning of it, anytime we're trying something new, we almost have to like convince our brain, okay, I maybe don't believe this 100%. I maybe believe it 80%. And then you work to coach yourself through the thought of that, whatever that 20% is. You just work like fake it till you make it kind of thing, but try and train your brain to believe it so that it doesn't come out in the energy of like, oh, I know you're not going to pay this because it's so much. You don't want to say that and you won't say it, but it'll come out in your energy.
And to that, because right there, I promise you, half of the people listening just went, I'm not going to lie to myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Your belief that people won't buy from you if you charge fees is a lie you just told yourself. The difference is which lie do you choose to believe? Because our beliefs are simply a story that we've told ourselves because that's what we have chosen. And I will have advisors that will say, no, because as soon as I did it, I was proven right. Because you believed it to your core that you put that energy out there and your clients went, oh, you don't believe it. So why should I believe it? And we can't ask people, and ask is the wrong word. We can't position our services, our fees, our charges, whatever it is, with a question mark at the end. Positioning something within your business that has a question mark at the end, I promise you nobody's going to pay for. But when you put it out there with a period, or my favorite, an exclamation mark, people will be like, oh, cool, sounds good. And if they won't, then we need to go back to those core beliefs that Jennifer talked about to say, okay, is this the person I want to work with? I know if you heard some of my fees training, we talk about, okay, great. You don't have to start with the moon. Start with $10. If they won't pay $10, let's say they paid $10 or $2,000 per person, is $10 going to break them? The answer every time is no. Okay. But will somebody refusing to pay you $10 mentally break you? And almost every time the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's to work through that process. I'm not saying you need to come out of the gate charging hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but we need to start somewhere small. And it is that belief. It is strictly a belief that nobody will pay us. It is a belief that we have told ourselves. So instead, I'm going to challenge you with Jennifer here. We're challenging you to shift that belief, but own that belief. And I love that she's given you like some grace here and saying you only got to believe it 80%. I'm going to tell you go for like 95, 99%. But it is choosing to believe it, because I'm not sure where you think the data is going to come from that's going to reinforce the belief if you don't first believe it for yourself. People don't just randomly come up to us and say, by the way, you're amazing. You should be doing this because you're so fabulous, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't happen unless and until you're already believing it yourself. Because if you refuse to believe that and somebody comes up and tells you you're amazing, you're going to have all the reasons why you're not. It's the same idea if somebody comes up and says to you, my heavens, you are beautiful. If you don't believe it to your core, you are going to have an adverse reaction to hearing that. And so it doesn't matter that somebody else told you that, because we all say, well, no, until somebody else tells me, I can't believe it for myself. But unless and until somebody else has now said it, you're going to let all those old stories that you've built up be all the data and reasons why that's not possible. So choose your belief and choose it without a question mark at the end and live full out in it, because that's what's going to make the difference in you, in yourself, but also in your business. Sorry, that was my squirrel.
I love it. No, I'm completely aligned with that. Like it does start with belief and you can just look at the results you're getting and it always stems back to what you believe in and sometimes we have to coach ourselves a little bit to get that belief to where we want it to be, and that happens over time with proof. So that's my second offer to your audience is, once you've figured out your why and you're working towards the belief in what you are providing, sometimes you need some proof. So something that I encourage those that I work with is to create a proof sheet. Mine is right beside me. It's actually right behind my computer and it's on the wall. And these are bits of proof that I have gathered over the years that I am fully capable and I can get my clients results and I believe in what I'm offering and I believe in my pricing and I know that it works. It's testimonials. It's kind things people have said. It is, and so let's say you're just starting out in business and you don't have testimonials yet. It's what friends and family, like, the ones that are awesome, like my sister Marion, who I could fill my walls with kind things she said
I
to encourage
bet.
me. And those are the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. So if you don't have clients yet, you're going to go to the people that you look up to and surround yourself with that fills you, with kindness and good vibes. And you want to write those down. You can also put in, as you get into having more clients, serving more people, you can put in the reasons why they would, pay the fee for you, what it mattered to them, like when they had this struggle, maybe on a holiday and they needed to connect with you and you were right there to connect with them, or you answered their questions ahead of time and they went like you knew what we needed before we even asked. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. So all the proof that you need to help your brain believe 100% in what you are about to offer is beneficial. So those are the two tools that I recommend. Start with your big, strong why, and through that, work on your 100% belief in what you're offering, and then create that, like, here's the proof. Here's the proof. Your brain needs it to get to that 100%. You've got that proof right in front of you.
For sure. With that proof, so I'm just thinking of the people that are newer, and might still be struggling with the stories that they're telling themselves. And I know we want to keep everything to the positive, but if you're struggling and you're working on that proof list and you don't necessarily have the, well, I've done this, so I know I can do, like, I've done this for clients, I've done, because we're newer, could that proof list also be the list of things you will help your clients avoid?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
can foresee this happening.
Yeah. If
Yes.
they don't have the guidance, this is what could happen to them. Now, don't take yourself down a trail of, oh my goodness, I'm now responsible for all this, because it's going to come out of you and you are going to have a community to support you. If you are not already, join Sticky Sales Scenarios on the Facebook group. We'll link it up, because if you are struggling, jump in the group and ask a question. We'll help you out with that. We are a resource for you. You have the ability to help your clients by having these connections within the industry. But if you don't have direct proof of, I have done XYZ, it can be, I help clients avoid ABC. And that becomes part of it too, because your clients don't know what they don't know. And so to know that you're going to help them avoid that, because why do people automatically go to price? Because they don't know what else they're looking at. So they don't have the other things that are going to factor in. Choosing something solely on price has the potential to lead your clients down a terrible, terrible trail. I myself have done the quote unquote cheapest vacation ever, and it was the worst week of my entire life. that has hit a core level. I have a certain standard that from that point on, I'm like, I am so sorry. I don't sell below that.
Mhm.
I'm not your girl. If that's what you're looking for, I can't do it because at my internal core, would rather my clients waited another 6 months or another 12 months if they can't afford it to get a better experience rather than having that worst vacation of their life. Because to me, their money is so incredibly precious that I don't want them to squander it on a terrible vacation. I don't want them to lose it on a terrible experience. I would rather encourage them to wait to have a better experience because I care so deeply for the experience my clients get. Because again, when we're talking of those budget clients, and I know I'm chasing another squirrel, but this one, when you talk about those core beliefs, this one hit me because I lived it. And we got a great deal. But as Nolan Burris says, how cheap does a bad vacation have to be to have still been a good deal? Well, I tell you, you could not pay me to go and repeat the vacation that we had. And so I want to make sure that my clients who have, there's sometimes a stigma about people that work on budgets. I sometimes think that they deserve more of our care because maybe instead of, just pulling out a credit card and slapping it down, they've maybe saved for 2, 3, 4 years to get to that point. I would rather that they wait just a little bit longer to have a better experience because I don't want them to lose what they've worked so hard for to get to, just so I can make a few bucks, because that's not what I was in it for. I was in it to make sure that families had memories that carried on long past all the quote unquote stuff was gone. I wanted to make sure that they had those memories, and I never wanted them to be a bad memory.
Okay, I would love that because that is exactly what is going to help your listener right now. So your why, you want families to have beautiful memories and
Mm-hmm.
not the bad memories that you
Right.
had. So on your proof sheet, if you're just starting out and you don't have testimonials yet, you don't have people raving quite yet, it can be your lived experience.
Yep.
This is my proof. I've been through this.
Yep.
I don't want you to have a bad family, like memory on vacation. It's going to be awful, right?
Right.
That's your proof. I've been through it. I can help you.
Yeah. I love
That's going to
that.
build belief. So for you, I mean, and for anyone listening right now, maybe that's enough for them to even just to begin. If the only proof is that I've had a crappy vacation, it was awful. We're still cringing about it. And I don't want this to happen to anyone else.
Right.
And my service is valuable because of that.
Yeah.
It's probably enough of a belief for them, just that one statement.
When I tell the story about that one, I remember flipping back. I think we were on night 3. And I remember being in tears in my hotel room and apologizing to my husband, saying, I wish I had the money to get us out of here, but I don't. Because it was so early on in my career. And I was like, it's cheap. We'll just do it. It'll be great. And it was in all the things I do. And actually, you know what? Because to me, it saved me from so many other families experiencing that. I can't even call it a regret. It was one of those things that I'm like, okay, this was one of those lessons I had to learn in order to be better at what I do to prevent other people from going through it. I also have a friend who, when her Gigi passed away, they had flown out to Ontario and they were spending time. And she sent me the most beautiful text message. And again, that would have hit my proof sheet. She said, we're going through the photos and looking at all the times my kids got to come to Ontario to see Gigi and all of the things. She goes, I just want you to know as we go through this family album, how many of these memories you made happen, that you
Mm.
made those happen for our family because you got us there. And to me, that's not about money. It's about connection. Now, I am sorry, kids. I am probably responsible for a lot of you not getting Christmas and birthday presents anymore because I trained your parents to stop doing that and spend the money on the vacations.
Mhm.
Because for my kids, they loved it. That's what we did. In fact, my children are now adults and they're like, so this whole adulting thing, where you started buying us gifts again, could we like ditch that and go back to like when we were teenagers and you paid for our vacations and we got to go? But we have all these memories and all of these experiences that got to take place. And so that was a huge driving force when I was selling. And that's how we built it out for families. Because to me, when somebody's gone, I don't need their stuff. I need that memory. I need that experience. My children were beyond blessed to travel as many times as they did with my parents. We did so many multi-gen, and the fun that they had and the things that they got to experience, because instead of just, yeah, we'll stop at Nana and Papa's after school, they hang out there for an hour or two till I can pick them up or whatever the case might be. Here we were 2.5 weeks of uninterrupted fun. Watching my youngest, well, actually, all three of the boys, my cousin, my nephew, and my two boys, building out their coconut business in Hawaii that they were going to do. And they actually, my youngest still talks about it to this day. He still has a vision of a business that he created in his mind when he was 5 years old in Hawaii. And he still believes it is a business that should be here. We don't know what's going to happen when we travel. We don't know what's going to experience. But here we are 20 years later almost, and he still remembers it. And he still says, I'm still going to do it one day. I'm still going to make that happen, because it's so ingrained in him. And he's had so many life experiences, careers already at his young age. And I actually see how they will all potentially merge into that one lane where I actually fully believe at some point that business will become a reality.
That is so beautiful. I hope you share that story so many places, because that is really what travel is all about. And I just got back from taking my kids away, and I know a lot of cool things will come from that. But it is beautiful, and there's something I wanted to go back to just touch on about that proof that we have in our experiences, and the focus being on what are you learning from it and how is it helping you in your business right now. So for those in your audience listening right now that have these fears of failure, have these fears of people, making, I don't know, making fun of them or judging them. I know a lot of my clients, it's like judgment. If I put myself out there too much, if I charge too much, or if I, do something, it's going to prove that I'm not good enough, or people aren't going to appreciate me, or they're going to judge me, or all of these things. And I think that, the biggest and best thing we can do is just really to work on our mindset and how we are looking at everything we are doing, what failures can create successes, and how we need to have those failures. So you needed to have that family vacation that was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And look at what happened. You built an
Yep.
entire business out of it, right?
Yep.
I think was it Mark Twain that said, like, success comes from experience, but you only get experience through failures.
Yep.
And so, like, if each one of the people listening right now can just like embrace the failures and take from it what you learn, what can help someone else. I've been through this and it can help someone else. So in that proof sheet, when you're looking at all of these things that didn't go right, how can I use that to help things go right for my clients?
Yep.
And then how can I also take those great stories like the coconut business? How can I take that and just like create this inspiration through stories, and how can they share that with their audience? So that might be the proof as well. The worst and the best, what it created was better vacations, was better memories. That's what you want for your clients.
Yep.
And how to take that to create the belief and the success in your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you have this moment where the ego kicks in and it's like, oh, I can never let people know that. I could never, oh my goodness, what will people think? What will people say? And I think when you talk about unlock your niche superpower, to me, the superpower of my niche when I am coaching travel advisors is if it was possible to screw it up, I have.
Mm.
And so I've been there, I've done that. I've got the t-shirt. I'm willing to let you borrow it so you don't have to spend as much time to learn the same lessons. And so everything, I had somebody ask me, do you have a fear of failure? And I said, no. And they said, well, why is that? And I said, because everything amazing that has happened in my life, in my business, started as the biggest failure, started as the biggest screw up. And yet it was beautiful. And it all has worked out for a purpose. Even like in the end of 2018, going into early 2019, I closed my travel agency because I just didn't want to do it anymore. It just didn't fulfill me. I felt like a caged lion in my office. And I remember going to a conference in May of 2019 and speaking with the speaker. And she said to me, she goes, have you grieved it? And I said, what? She goes, have you grieved it? And instantly tears flew. I'm like, apparently not. But I'm like, but I chose to close it. I chose my path. And so she went on to describe and to explain the process when they sold a 7-figure business and like 4 7 figures, like they got 7 figures out of it. And the fact she needed to go through grief. And so in some ways, I realized that I was like, but what are people going to say? And then when 2020 came, because I had closed my business so I could coach full time in marketing for small businesses. But when 2020 came, I knew I was supposed to come to help the travel industry. So I came into the sales. I'm a sales geek. I own it. I geek on sales. Like it's weird. But I will never forget in April of 2020, I did a live with Pax Media and we ended up going down a side trail. It wasn't where we were headed. We went down a side trail and I talked about grief and how important it was to grieve where we were headed. And yet people in my hometown are like, ooh, she went bankrupt. She did. And no, that wasn't the case. So there was this perception of failure that was out there. But instead, it just wasn't who I was anymore. And it doesn't matter what other people said. I actually had somebody come to me and she's like, somebody said this. And I said, oh, she goes, yeah. So I just looked at them and said, oh, you have no idea. Because if she's doing this, it means something bigger's coming. And this woman had no clue because we were more or less acquaintances, had no clue what was coming. And I just smiled and I said, how do you know me so well? She goes, because I'm you. She goes, I'm about to do something and people are going to call me a failure. And they don't have a clue how big it's about to become. And she was right. And so we can choose to live in that concept of what are other people going to say? But earlier, remember when I said somebody comes up to you and says, you're beautiful, and we choose not to believe them? Why do we give them the ability to tell us you're going to be a failure, you're going to do this, and we internalize that? That's only a belief. I can choose to believe I'm a failure, or I can choose to believe I am a success. I don't believe in failure. I believe in lessons. And I fully admit there's a couple of times where I'm like, okay, I get it. I didn't learn the lesson the first time. We're here. But everything amazing has always started or looked to the outside world like a failure. And now I kind of get sad when I don't see one of those quote unquote failures coming because I'm like, okay, I want to do something bigger. Where is it? Because I do feel like you still have to have a misstep here and there. Not that I'm calling for one, but at the same time, I also know that my biggest growth comes on the heels of what other people would call a failure. And when I was younger, I would have stayed in that failure world. I would have stayed in quote unquote my place. I grieve for that person, but I am so grateful when I found the mentors that I did that were able to propel me forward, that were able to show me that it's only a belief. And belief is something you choose. It is not fact. It is your choice whether or not you want to believe, like whether or not it's real. Data is fact. And even at that, we can change it by choosing to do something different, try something new. We are in control of what we believe. And when we're looking for a niche, when we're looking for that, we've got to get our beliefs under control. Like when we started this off, I said, when I got to that chapter, I'm like, why is that so important? Why are beliefs so important in your niche? Because nobody in marketing's talking about your core beliefs. And here we are. Because I will have advisors that will say, I want to sell luxury, but who am I to do it? I could never afford it. I can never this. I can never. We need to check those core beliefs. Do you believe people deserve to spend their money creating experiences for themselves, for their family? Do you believe that they should be allowed to have indulgences? Or do you believe that you aren't good enough to do something, or that you might screw it up, or that you might be a failure? Failure is when we choose not to learn from something, when we choose to let it redefine everything and tell us why we can't do something in the future. I admit sometimes it takes me a little longer to shake it off, but I choose every time to say, wow, that didn't work. That sucked. Let's move on. And that to me is the difference between those that get forward and those that stay stuck in the mud. Sorry, chased another squirrel there.
No, I think you're right on point there, and I think it's the best and biggest work that we all need to do, because we all have human brains that throw these thoughts in our heads. And I think the best thing we can do is just identify, what's true. You said beliefs are not facts, thoughts are not facts. So what's true and what isn't? So if I believe this, let's dive into it. Do I believe, like, is this really true? And if it isn't true, what part of it is true? And
Right.
shift that belief. And I can tell that you're an amazing coach because you do talk about this. And I can tell that anyone working with you would really benefit from just diving into, being able to or even understand, not control the thoughts, but understand, okay, Monday morning I wake up and my first thought is, who's even going to want to hear from me? They're going to, someone's going to judge me. I'm just going to go back to bed. Right.
Yep. Yep.
So the biggest and the best work they can do is just like, okay, who's going to want to hear from me? Well, I'm going to look at my proof sheet. I'm going to talk to my friends. I'm going to reach out to my mentor, my coach, whoever it is that I need to figure out what the truth really is. And if there's something there that is still, you're not in belief of whatever, that better thought is for you, just keep doing the work. But I can tell that your clients are in good hands by the way you're talking about it, because it is really everything. Like everything else we do doesn't really matter. It starts with what we believe.
Absolutely.
And then we take actions from there, because if I believe no one's going to listen to me, I'm probably not going to do a Facebook Live.
Yep.
I'm probably not going to reach out to someone that asked me for support.
Yep.
But if I wake up and I believe, I do the work, I'm like, I can help people. I know I can. And I wake up and I think, yeah, like I've got an abundance of people that can't wait to work with me, then I'm going to take way different actions. I'm going to pick up the phone or Zoom or
We're going
send
to
an
connect.
email. I'm going to go to a networking event. Like I think that's what's not happening. And it's since COVID, it's like there's still people afraid to get out and
Yep.
talk to people in real life. Like,
Yep.
who else can I talk to? You're going to take much different actions from that place of belief.
And as you're saying that, I also hear, well, I can't yet because I don't know enough. I'm still learning this. That's also why we have travel advisors who, when I talk to them, they say, well, I have my lead magnet. I'm like, great. Oh, is it out? No, I'm still working on it. Well, how long have you been working on it? Like 12 months. No, 3 hours. Like, let's get it out. And it's what is the belief that's holding us back? What is it that's in there? This book, Unlock Your Niche Superpower. Yes, it's for parent coaches. Um, I am going to encourage you to pick it up. It is okay. So I did say I missed a line on there because it is the ultimate step-by-step workbook for parent coaches. I grabbed it, I ordered it, came in, jumped in the hot tub, went to read it. I think I got to page 5 and it's worksheets to fill things in. I'm like, oh, well, that's not going to work. So it is one that you got to do the work. And I have had this conversation so many times lately. The difference between those that achieve long-term sustainable success are the ones that have done the internal work. The ones that either never take off or they go in a rocket and then they crash and burn, never did the inside stuff. And the inside stuff is uncomfortable AF, but it to me is what's going to set you up permanently. And this workbook is filled with it. You've got ask probing questions. What do I believe to be true about myself in this area? Followed by where did this belief come from? So this is not going to be a book you can race through. It might be one that you pick up and then set down because I'm not going to lie. Some of the questions touched a nerve or 12. And it was so cathartic to also go through. But some of the amazing things you had in there when you're choosing your niche and trying to get all that was also checking out what other people in your space are saying about that. Because otherwise we all look at that blinking cursor and we don't know where to start. But if we know that these are the types of suppliers we want to sell, well, how are those suppliers talking about it? What are the words they're using? What are the things that are going on in there? But I love this conversation because of the fact that we didn't just go straight into the tactical of A, B, C, D. Let's list out your suppliers. Let's list out your commission. Let's list out because we have to energetically align with who and what we do. Because if we don't, well, then go get a job working for somebody else doing something you hate. Because you're going to be as aligned with that as you will with choosing a niche that doesn't connect internally. Because we can't have something as our main focus in our business and yet have an internal belief against it. That's where I go back to the luxury and yet resenting people who can spend money on luxury. It's not going to allow you to sell it the way you want to. It's not going to allow your clients to have the experience the way they deserve to have it. And yet we so often we're like, but that's where the money is. That's where the money is. In fact, I've done sales calls this week with travel advisors. And the one started off with, I'm so sorry, but I work with budget clients. And I said, don't ever apologize for that because they deserve somebody to take care of them as well. And so when we looked at it from that perspective and talked about that, it was like, oh, yes, they do. Because I don't know about you, but I started as a budget client. That's why I ended up on the worst vacation of my life. But that's why they deserve to have somebody look after them. Now, perhaps you're not going to go out and market yourself as budget, but you're going to shift the language that takes place. And it's just that you're not necessarily going to be advertising 6-star luxury properties. You might talk more about 3 and 4 stars and about the what they can do while they're there and the experiences they can have. But you might also then talk about family budgeting for vacation because that's what's going to come back into it. Once you know who you want to serve and how you want to serve them and how it aligns with your own inner core beliefs, then you can make that plan forward. Again, going back to what Jennifer said at the beginning, you know how to have conversations with them and they will know how to refer you. they will know how to explain you to other people. I love this conversation. Did you have any closing thoughts that you wanted to share?
Yeah, there's just one thing that I think will help everyone out there selling your service right now. For a moment, try this on. Shift your selling to serving, because that is the one thing that has really shifted my mindset around what I am providing. Instead of, I am selling this, you are buying this, you are paying me for this service, I am serving you. And like you said, Glenda, everyone in every area of travel needs this. Luxury, high end to family budget, low end, people need all of it. And if you can find your area to really support them and serve in that area, you will never have the fear of whatever your fee is, how you are showing up and supporting them. If it's always coming from a place of service, you can never go wrong.
I love it. But just like with the waitress or the waiter, the server at your restaurant, there is always a bill involved. So you can
Right.
serve them, make sure they have the best time ever, but they still got to pay their bills.
That's
Okay.
right. You are running a business.
You are running a business. Okay. I'm going to highlight a couple of things right out of the top that I made notes, people, all the way along. I love that you talked about build your community. Ask the questions because you never know where it'll end up. I love your story about asking at the hospital, and you did it scared. You did it without knowing how that happened. And I will say there is a lot of times that things happen in my business that I just have this freak bravery that comes out of nowhere. And afterwards I stop and I'm like, wait, did I just do that? How did I do that? And I don't necessarily have the words. There's the movie, So We Bought a Zoo. And what do they call it? 5 seconds of bravery. And that's all it is. And that actually became a mantra for my business when I first started. If you haven't seen So We Bought a Zoo, go watch it. It's a beautiful movie. But the story of bravery for the 5 seconds, like that's all it needs is just those seconds of bravery can change everything. And I also love that therapy looks at the past, but coaching looks at the future. And that is so true. I've been on a therapy journey of my own in the last while. And I actually said to a friend of mine recently here, I said, okay, I'm feeling the end of it, but I know I'll continue with her for maintenance because, there's always a need for that. But I knew I was looking for somebody different. I was looking for something more. And you're right. I have been looking into new coaches for myself. And it's because I'm now forward thinking. When I was in my grief path this last year, I was looking at the past, looking at the woulda, coulda, shouldas. And I think that's been my shift. I've gotten to this point. Now, where do I go? What does my future look like? And I never made that connection until you said it, that the work with my therapist is winding down. I will continue to go see her on a regular basis just for maintenance. But I have been looking into new coaches for myself. And yes, coaches have coaches. If they don't, find a new one. But coaches have coaches. And even the coaching that I have to this point has gotten me to this point. I'm looking for somebody to take me to the next level. And so I have been doing that. So I will be doubling down on that in the next little bit here, because that was truly a light bulb moment for me. Thank you. This has been a journey. Travel advisors, go grab this book, Unlock Your Niche Superpower by Jennifer McCallum. It is written for parent coaches, but every time it says parent coach, just put in travel advisor in your brain. Just do it, because the internal work, the questioning, the core values, all of that is so absolutely important to your business and to helping you really and truly figure out your niche. When I talk to travel advisors, I hear all the time, but I don't know what my niche is. I don't know what my lane is. I don't want to give up all of this other, all of these stories that we tell. And in fact, I'm a part of a Women in Business, and we did a luncheon last week on pricing. And I actually stopped them because, but you don't understand our industry. You don't understand our industry. And I just said, you know what? Here's the thing. In business, it's called insert industry here. And to me, that's what this book is as well. Insert industry here, because a lot of the struggles we have, we think are unique to us or unique to our industry. They're not. They are across the board and something all of us are facing and all of us are struggling with. And the ones that figure it out are the ones that end up on that launch path going forward faster. Thank you so much. Check out the book, and we will see you guys again next time. Until then, happy selling.